We are live.
Okay, hi guys. Welcome again, everyone, to this new series that we thought of starting. It's called Air Investigations, and the idea behind is to make our sessions more interactive and have you participate. So the investigation will be done by you. So we'll have pilot stories. Pilots, senior pilots will be sharing, incidents and accidents and situations that they've experienced. And you on your part would like to investigate as to, the psychology behind, the reasons behind, by asking questions that come to your mind, to get your perspective about a particular incident or accident. So we thought that would be the best way to learn and grow and mature as pilots. And like I mentioned, it is good not to deny this aspect of the sport where we don't look at it at all. Accidents do happen. This is a risky sport. It is an adventure sport. And the best key to stay safe is to be better prepared. And one of the ways is to investigate, learn from incident and accidents that have happened and prepare ourselves better, our understanding, of situations that we can learn from a lot. So today we have Rohit with us, who, like I mentioned, had an intense experience in Kamshit of being on the lee of a mountain and then having to deploy his reserve. It's a beautiful opportunity to learn from his experience. So we'll jump in right away. I'll hand you over to Rohit, who will first share a little background. We'll show a video about what happened. It's a partial video, but you can make out a lot. And then we'll have everyone asking questions that they want to ask about, and then we go about it like that. So yeah, Rohit, over to you.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I see 17 participants. And when I look at the list, I think most of you guys have been flying for a while now. Some might be a reasonably new pilot. So we have a quite mix there. So when I look at this pilot profile, I pretty much remember this is where I was. So let me give you the background. This happened sometime in 2012. I'll probably check the date. 2012 sometime, March timeframe. I was on my second wing, the first B wing, as I probably mentioned it before. Jump from ENA to ENB is a significant one unless you have started with ENB. And this B is mid B sort of, so not really mild or docile. It was a good performance one. So this was my first B wing. I had done 80 hours with my ENA wing. And now I've been flying this wing not more than 20 hours. So you can understand, I'm still yet to understand this wing. I was in the third year of my flying. And by that time, I've been training myself for SIVs and so on. There was one SIV I did with my ENA wing. And that was an experience behind me. I'll refer to that experience again later. Then I bought my ENB wing. I did a lot of kiting. I took it to Beer. I started thermaling with it. Of course, I was very wet behind the ears. But stayed safe in the front ridges, just basic thermaling, learned a few things. Was feeling very great about myself that I pretty much learned thermaling there. Now came back to Kamshit, and now I want to thermal all the time, right? So this is the part when I'm saying that whenever you are pushing the boundary of your earlier flying career or your experiences, you are in the risk zone. So understand, acknowledge, and play smartly, right? So I was trying to thermal. I was getting regularly like high enough to go jump to the second ridge and so on. I've been doing that a couple of times after I came back to Kamshit. And on this instance, it's pretty much the same. Pavna flying, took off early, 2:30, trying to catch thermals, very mild condition, not much wind, high humidity, so very soft thermals. Could get high enough to transition to Tikona. And from Tikona, we weren't getting much height. I also had Viz with me. We decided to just go with that height and transition to the next ridge to Tikona. Okay. When I started seeing Viz, he was in the deeper line, closer to the mountains. So I think he was getting a bit of the rotor waves. And I stayed out to be safer. And now I'm reaching to the knuckle. So this is where we are so far. Now I'm going to play the video, but before that, look, some of you are thinking in your mind, I didn't sign up for this, this is not me. I do not want anything such extreme. So let me just try to tell you that in case you are just a weekend pilot, all you want to just relax flying, nothing wrong with that. Absolutely, this is a beautiful sport. And in fact, there are many sub sport in this. Each can choose what they are happy with. So if you just never want to be into that situation, just fly in the conditions that the soaring condition, the evening condition, the wind is predictable. You are never going to get high enough to probably go to the next ridge. You're not thermaling, and you can keep yourself safe, have fun. Don't ever have to bother. So it's not as if it will happen with everyone, but I can assure you, whenever pilot is stepping out of his comfort zone, he's in intermittent syndrome, he's learning new things, he'll probably come across. So our session today is to see one of that pilot, me, facing a difficult situation, and how some of the earlier learnings at that time probably had come together. All right, let's get that video going. By the way, guys, I have shared the link. We are going to play the video on the Zoom, but in case you want to directly play the video in your own browser, on a side browser using the chat window, that is good, because sometimes the video can be choppy. You don't need to worry later, because we're going to be pausing, but I want you to see the video once with full speed, play it on YouTube, full speed, later play it again, reduce the speed to half or something, and then again play it once. Okay, so while I play, feel free to do your own playback if that's smoother for you. Fair enough? All right, so here is me. Now, earlier part of the video is cut. So basically, I arrive at this knuckle on the spine. Now, what you see me here is a different, slightly later view. So I arrived it on the spine, and I'm trying to climb up the spine, and I was getting the lift. Now, suddenly I find myself getting pushed on the other side of the spine. Okay, and I won't go into the very detail, but at this moment, I was still not sure whether I was in rotor or I'm still in the climbing air. So it continues to climb for a while. Okay, now I'm going to play.
Rohit, before you do that, just explain which side is the rotor side and which side is the...
Yeah, so frankly speaking, at this point where I'm flying, I wasn't very sure in my mind, and that's where the whole problem is. Okay, but now to tell you guys, at the hindsight, the wind is angled coming from the left-hand side of the screen. And anytime you go below the level of the ridge that you see, as long as you're high, you're fine, even though you're behind. But if you start coming lower, you're going to come into the rotors. And that's what you're going to see happening. Okay, I'm going to play the video now. All right. In case you have already played that video in your browser, I'm just going to play it once more with a slow speed. 0.5, later we can go slower. I'll just play it once with a slow speed so that you again see what's happening in a little bit more detail. I won't speak a lot right now because we have a lot of analysis. In fact, you are the people who are going to do the analysis. You're going to ask questions. We have a lot of experts on the call. All right. Any comments before we start taking this piece by piece? Oh, first of all, the cactus that you saw in the end was a lifesaver. We'll again look at in detail, but when I landed, I was absolutely unhurt, not even a pain anywhere. Of course, later it was a bit sore, but I was absolutely fine. There was a bit of a drama later because of the open reserve that I'll show you later. But I was absolutely fine. And in fact, I packed, Wiz came, trying to find me if I'm okay. All I want to do is go back in the air at that time, because everything that I would have done, I had done beyond a certain point. And I was so happy with myself. I said, okay, let me get back on a horse. So I'm just trying to tell you it is all good, all happy ending. I was raring to go again. Okay. With that, anyone has any comments before we start taking it piece by piece?
Yeah. So, Rohit, there are some comments.
Yeah.
First is, there were 20 seconds from trouble starting to you reaching the ground.
Yeah.
And when did you deploy reserve?
Good. So we'll definitely see that. But you will find that from the point I decided to deploy the reserve till the point I hit the ground was 9 seconds. And after I deployed, it was probably 3 seconds before I hit the ground. So very first learning is, no matter how low you are, it's always a reserve time in case you're in doubt. There's never too late for reserve. Okay.
Okay. Another comment from Manoj. As wind was from your left, the area you were flying was a venturi. It's an observation.
Fair enough. That was a good point. In fact, the reason I said I was confused is this knuckle is not exactly west facing. Okay. This knuckle is, I would say,
west-northwest.
Yeah, west-northwest facing. So originally I had a plan to stay on the other side of the ridge, and there was some confusion that made me stop thinking. And I started climbing along the spine, just like we do it in beer. So this is where little bit of beer effect was playing on back of my mind. Okay. And I was climbing. So I was thinking, oh, okay, I'm climbing. And the moment later, I was on the other side. I got pushed on the other side. So I find suddenly myself here, but I'm still climbing. And till this point, I didn't see that I was in a big risk. Okay. Now I'll start probably taking you frame by frame. So at this point in time, I see something isn't right, but I'm not very sure whether I'm in a full rotor, as this wasn't exactly back of the wind. It is because of the wind that is sideways. Manoj, you're right. I was in venturi, and I was also, some part of the wind is venturish, the lower one, because Manoj, you're so right that later you will find me struggling to control my reserve, because in the venturi, the reserve was getting fully inflated on flying side while my wing is stuck here. And I was like a Dara Singh trying to hold the ropes, trying to not let my wing damage. That was a difficult part, in fact, other than everything here. So till this moment, I was fine. I see a little bit of a something unrecognizable for me, but nothing too worrisome till this. As I said, I have done my SIV here, so I understand the collapses. I wouldn't say I'm a very proficient, but I understand the collapses. Okay, so you'll see I get my first collapse here. And at this, I'm not overly worried. I have handled collapses in SIV, I have seen them in V. So you saw the tip tuck on the right hand side here, right? So I saw that while flying, and I wasn't like super worried about it. Now, the second moment is when I saw the opposite side going. Now, typically, you have a big collapse on one side, and then that depressurizes the wing and that loosens the other side. But if you already had just one little tuck on other side, the left-hand side shouldn't go this big. So this is the first moment I realized that something isn't right. I'm definitely in the wrong area. Now it's happening very fast. Next thing what happens is completely unrecognizable for me and out of my books. Okay, out of my any recognizable pattern at that time, and it took me some time to understand why it happened really. So, okay, you had a little tuck going on the right, then there was a little tuck on the right, fair enough. Now, this. So the wing suddenly dove so much on the right, and not dove on one side, but it is like almost vertical diving on that side. Some additional data points. I was flying in Genie Light. Genie Light is a harness really designed to fly supine, like a pod harness, but I was flying it in a non-pod configuration. It's not the best to fly in a non-pod, frankly, that harness now. And also the shoulder straps that are connected with your riser were quite loose. So I was more supine, okay? So what happens is right now, see, apart from why this happened, you will see a huge break on the right-hand side. And why that is happening, because I'm still sitting here while my wing is actually diving in front of me on the right-hand side. I'm still sitting vertical. And that causes a huge break on the right-hand side because just I'm trying to balance. Rather, if I would have adjusted my harness more accurately, I would have gone with that dive. The glider would have pulled me along with it, and I would have kept balanced my brakes as well. But here, I was sitting with my inertia still there, and the glider is diving. Now, this is first time I realized this is something I am out of my recognizable wing configuration. Clearly, we have a very difficult situation at hand. This is when first time I recognized. I still haven't decided to deploy here. Okay. Is there any question on the decision point so far?
Santosh is asking, I think this will come a few seconds later. What thoughts came to mind before your hand reached the reserve handle? And second, what was the biggest stress point? I mean, first thought when you threw the reserve. So yeah, I mean, we're getting there, right?
Yeah, I'm getting there. Okay. Okay, if there is no question so far on this point, then I'll move on. So at this point, I saw that this is something that I don't recognize, but let's see. Okay. So the wing finished its dive. It's too much break. Now the wing, I'm falling under the wing. Okay. I'm falling under the wing, and I realize the wing is spinning. You don't see the screen on the left-hand side. I think there was a slight thing that you could see. You could see because of so much break on the right-hand side, the right side wing has actually spun, or I could see, I was looking at the wing. So one of the important things for you in a situation like that, of course, to know where are you from the ground, which I knew already. I was reasonably close. I was close to the ridge, but also keep looking at your wing. It's very important in a very stressful situation because there's a lot of information that's happening there. So I already saw the wing has stalled on the right-hand side. It's called spin. One side stall is spin, right? So now I realize that I recognize this is a spin. I'm going to spin now, and I'm spinning very close to the ground. And here is when my previous SIV experience start telling me that a spin very close to the ground, I'm going to probably start entering in the nosedive spiral to coming out of the spin. That's one. I know how to come out from the spin from the traditional SIV recovery, which is stall the wing, hold in a back fly, let it fly. But I absolutely don't have a height for that. Okay. And at this point, I decide, it spun. I'm close to the ground. The next thing that you see, the wing diving. There you go. At this point, I realized, shit, the wing is diving now. Coming out of spin, it's diving. And probably it's going to enter in the rotations. You see the whiz right there in the sky on the top of the mountain over there. Okay. So this is the moment I realized, shit, I'm so close to the ground. I'm diving. And this is the typical recovery from the spin is a dive and a turn. And I'm entering that turn, a beginning of the turn. And with the so close to the ground, I do not want to enter the spiral for sure at that time. This is the thoughts going on in my mind. No shit, I do not want to enter spiral. Let me stall the wing here and throw the reserve. I also thought it may not be enough for me to deploy the reserve because I'm too close to the ground. Not that I didn't think about it. Let me rewind you a few days back from this incident. We were flying on tower, and one of the student doing probably his club pilot rating was under the guidance with Ganpa. And we were standing thermic day, middle of the day, they were teaching thermaling, I believe. And one of the pilot held his brake too low to try to slow down the glider too much in the turn. And when that happened, I think his glider just spun on one side or even stalled whole. So I remember on the radio, Ganpa just asked him to just hold it down. I could see his glider actually stalled, but Ganpa has asked him to pretty much keep his brakes down in the stall as he was coming down. And in almost back fly condition or semi-stall condition, deep fly condition, whatever you're going to call it, when the glider wasn't flying, but he was just vertically coming down. But he was holding the brakes down. And he could land on the, not land, crashed on the tower, but almost unhurt because, of course, there are various things that play in this such equation. But I knew, and my research and everything, I knew that the backfly, when you're in the backfly, you typically come down at the rate of 5.8 meter per second, which is not very far from your reserve, which is 4 meter per second for a typical round 4.5. The certification is actually 5.5, right? For proper loading. So in the worst case scenario, I'll go down with the backfly, was a thought here. So that was a decision taken at this point. I'm going to stall the wing. I'm going to stay in the backfly and I'm going to deploy. So this is that decision point. Any questions so far? Okay, I'll continue.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry, one question. This is Pavna in the evening, I guess. What was the wind speed?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. When we were thermaling, I took off at 2:30. It was in fact so weak to get up. We were just getting up, climbing the height. You guys can hear me clear, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We were just getting higher up by just milking a very soft, wide thermal, which has like 0.5 meter per second. It wasn't even drifting. So we just kept at it, slowly drifting back towards the Tikuna. Not much height at all, not much wind at all. But typically, Pavna, around 3:34, the wind hits suddenly. It comes from the west. So I have a feeling that somewhere along the line when we are here, the wind started also picking up, which I couldn't feel over here. I mean, that's why everything got exaggerated. With that much of a wind, when I was climbing up at Pavna, the rotors wouldn't have been so bad. Okay. Okay.
Okay, sir, Ashish, you can ask your question directly. Okay, sir.
Hi, Rohit. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Rohit, just wanted information that were you lighter on the wing when this incident happened? And another question is, could this situation be avoided if you were heavier on the wing? Just a hypothetical question.
Yeah, good question. Let me tell you, I was at 95 on 80-100 wing. So I wouldn't call myself lighter on the wing at all.
Okay.
And if you are heavier on the wing, typically you can cut the turbulence much better, yes. But there's also a flip side of that, is when finally wing gives up, in such a big rotor, I believe it would have given up. Then the reaction is far more energetic, far more vicious than a rightly loaded wing. I would say for a rightly loaded wing is about 5 kgs from the top. Typically, I think in that terms, it's a good balance of performance and a floatability. And when you have quite a situation like, I had on my ENC wing, almost 60-70% wing gone on a half bar in beer. I was reasonably 5 kgs from the top. It was a dive, but not very vicious, not very crazy energetic that would have wound me with this. And of course, over the years, I have done far more SIVs and trained myself better. But that's my belief.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Rohit.
Sure.
Hi, I had a question. Would an ENA glider have handled this situation better? Would the wing have been more rigid?
Ashish, that's the question that I was looking for. Thanks for asking that. So what happens is, I have been in a slightly similar situation at least twice before my ENA wing. Okay, not so deep, but you have been to Pavna, of course. If you have ever gone height and taken height in Pavna and gone to Tikona, then you can understand what I'm going to say here now. You reach Tikona and then you start finding something. Sometimes you get a little bubble at Tikona, and now you're circling in the bubble in Tikona. Okay, the way you could climb is because you circle. Now we have a high wind condition, as you know, and sometimes while circling, you get it, you're trying to circle, you suddenly fall out of it on the lee side, the back side, and the sink is so much that if you fall, you're going to just straight away go into the lee side of the Tikona. So if you imagine Tikona in front of you, you will go on the right edge, slightly behind the right edge. And I have been there twice, okay, with my ENA wing loaded. That was a good question. Again, I think Kaiser asked the question. The better part, ENA wing 95, I was loaded at 95. So it was nicely loaded ENA wing. And I'm in a similar situation. And I realized this is something funny. So I just immediately started heading myself out in the plains and, keep looking at the wing. In case something happens, be ready to check. Of course, the ENA wing also did funny thing that it lost its pressure. It rolled, it pitched a bit, it moved around, but it kept chugging. It didn't do a massive collapses and something. So this is where I believe your ENA wings can do significantly much better job of keeping you safe, even in a bad condition such as this. Compare that to a high B, mid B, Cs. They are going to behave the way they have been designed to behave, which is react to the air mass with the energy. And with that energy comes the big dives, the big collapses. And as a pilot, you got to be ready to deal with all of that. So wing is not going to take good care of you then. Does that answer?
Yes, thank you for answering that.
Cool.
Okay, one last one, Rohit, from Ashish Singh. Ashish, you want to ask?
Yeah, hi. It was about the decision point when you were mentioning that, that backflight, going into that backflight thing, and then deploying.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, because, from seeing whatever I've seen, so you can't be doing both of the things together, right? If you're in backfly, you let go of the
good question
toggles. You won't be in the backfly, you'll be in a massive dive and then you deploy.
No, Ashish, lovely question.
Okay, yeah, just trying to understand.
No, that's beautiful. So understand, my first priority at this moment was to stop the dive at any cost, because I knew how close I was to the ground, and I knew that if I continue with this dive, in about 2 turns, we have a sink rate easily. You can get 5-6 meters per second sink rate in a dive like that, in a spiral dive like that. And imagine I would have finished that height in few seconds. So like maybe in 2 turns or something, I would have hit the ground. Okay, so my first priority was to stop the dive. At any cost, stop the dive, even if that means stalling the wing, because I couldn't afford to dive so close to the ground and winding up on the ground. So the first thing that came to my mind was stop the dive. And I remembered at that point, yeah, I can go in back fly. I know stalls. I know how to hold my stall. I'll go in a back fly. So I didn't count on the reserve at this point. My first line of defense was stop the dive, stall the wing, and keep your hands in the back fly. But if I can, throw the reserve as well. So the reserve, first thing was to control the wing. But I had intention of deploying. So now you will see, luckily I managed to do both. I won't claim that that actually happened with my conscious mind planning it and thinking it, but I was just lucky that my subconscious mind, or what I have been thinking, what I've been mental practicing of scenario, at the end of it, I'll start talking to you guys about why I was able to do little better than average pilot at that experience. Is that something that has happened with me earlier? So I'll explain that. But my point is, I didn't really prepare for something pretty cool that I did. I'll just show you now. So here I'm committed to stall. As you can see that I'm completely imbalanced in my harness. As I said, that harness was a pod harness and I was almost flying it in a open condition, doesn't give a lot of support. And also for pilots who are trying to rush to pod harness, this is a great learning. Pod can be so unstable. Another pilot in the nice open harness would have been in much, much better condition than the way I am. Look at my body. It's already throwing weight on the right-hand side. And, my legs are completely twisted. So I'm completely off balance here, right? And it doesn't get so bad in the open harness. It does get so bad in the pod harness. As you know, the pod harness, you're supposed to tuck your legs, but look at the whole mayhem happening. I have no clue where my legs are. Often I'm surprised to see my legs in the air. All right, so this is when I managed to stall the wing. I recognize that stall, great. So I felt, yeah, I stalled the wing. Now I have to keep my hands down as in at the stall point. I know which is reasonably at chest or at the carabiner level. That's what my intention is now. Okay, so the wing is spinning all over, probably would have ended up in a twisted action as well. So I'm just trying to keep somehow my hands in the down position. So here me trying to keep it almost in the back fly, and this is what happened. Now I have decided to deploy the reserve as third stage. So I quickly managed to hand over both my brakes in one hand. Now this is what much years later, even Cross Country magazine and everyone is talking about, that, hey, in case you're deploying, stall the wing first, hold the brakes in one hand and then deploy. I was just lucky that I was able to do that before really thinking too hard about it at that time. So that was a pretty interesting point here. Okay, so I'm holding it. You can see that I'm holding the both brakes in one hand. I have stalled the wing, so I have stopped its the rotation movement. Of course, looks like I'm twisted here, but my hand is straight away going for the reserve now. Again, no fiddling. I pretty much managed to get the reserve out in a reasonably fast. In case you haven't noticed, on the right-hand side, my hand just flashes for a second and a red packet that you can see. So again, this has a bit of a history. I'll come to that. Certain things that happened, I'll explain you, but that made me focus so much on my reserve packing, my reserve installation. Keep practicing taking your reserve out all the time. Is it smooth? Is it fast? That all came to my help here. And literally you can't see much, but the reserve is already deployed. When you saw the red packet, not deployed per se, it's thrown. It's not yet fully functional, okay? It's thrown. Now I try to come back to my configuration here. Now I'm getting untwisted. Now at this point, you can see my legs are thrown way up high in the air. I can't see, but I'm just gonna do an inference based on what you see in the next screen, that is due to my shoulders getting pulled back with the reserve opening. That's a reserve opening shock. In the next screen, somewhere on the screen here, you'll see a shadow of round shadow, the reserve shadow. That's when you will know, yeah, that was actually the reserve that is open. See, the wing is on the right, but do you see on the left side of the screen, you can see a circular shadow? that's a reserve you can see. And the wing, if you can see, is on the right hand side. So the shadow for the wing is also on the right hand side. Okay. And it's not very clear from the screen, but in all this, really the luck plays a big part in all such situation. Of course, there is a massive cactus that you can see in the front, right? I didn't know anything about it. There was a massive cactus, and it's going to play a big role in how I ended up almost scot-free there. So this is when my wing started coming down. By this time, I think I have lost my hands also. They were no more in the, probably as the ground was rushing in, I was instinctively getting ready to brace the impact or something. But I'm very close to the ground at this point in time. Okay. Now, this is something that interesting happened. I believe my lines get stuck on this massive cactus when I'm about to hit the ground. The wing is also crumbling in the front that you can see, but lines are getting stuck in this cactus. Typically, that will happen anytime you ever come on any bush or any tree. Those are saviors. And you can see, rather than hitting the ground hard, I am getting rolled around, right? So before I hit the ground, I'm getting rolled around the cactus. So that's probably saved me from getting really badly injured. There are a lot of rocks you can see on the ground over here. Legs hitting any of them could have been much worse. My back getting hit could have been much worse. But hey, the cactus was there. It grabbed those lines, and I'm just like whacked around it and then hit the ground. So that's the frame by frame analysis. Now, I just want to explain you a couple of things, what prepared me to do some of these reserve related stuff. But before that, any further question again?
Manoj, you want to ask your question? Manoj?
Hi, everyone. Sorry for coming in.
Always. Hi, darling.
I think that's me in the background that didn't spec.
Yeah, I showed you also flying there. You came rushing to me. Are you okay, Rohit? Yeah, I'm fine. I'm like supercharged because I did everything but I could have done. Yeah, Manoj, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question. Before that, I'd like to share my own experience because 6-7 months back.
Sure.
Also, before 6-7 months ago, I also was in such a situation in my own own flying site, our own local flying site. Yeah, flying site.
Yeah.
So I also landed on a tree. I managed to land on a tree, and then to deploy my reserve. And it was, of course, a bit safely. And the thing is that I wanted to ask you, before asking the question, I missed some of your question and answer because of my this network connectivity. Because I want to say,
sure,
yeah,
sure. No worries. I'll repeat.
So when I messaged you one that the wind was coming from your left hand side, so
yes,
that area was very direct. So
yes,
as soon as you got this turbulence, that your glider is doing some unnatural behavior. Okay.
Yeah.
So that time you would have turned your glider to right hand side and
absolutely. I should have straight away headed to the plains.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but imagine what. Yeah. Please complete. Please.
Was not that was a good idea, because most of the flying side. Listen, we have in my local side. I already prepared three flying side. Of course, Joel was with me, and most of the side, the God has made the ridges like all the portion of the ridges are not exposed to the direct wind. Okay, so in the ridges also, some parts are in the headwind side, and other are in the this thing, rotor side, or you can say this thing. You're getting my point now?
Yeah, I'm absolutely getting your point. Yes.
So that was my question.
Okay. So you are spot on. The moment I would have sensed that this is wrong, and I already showed you the point when I sense things are wrong, the little tuck on the right-hand side was okay. I mean, I wasn't much worried about it. But when I saw a big collapse on the left-hand side, followed that clearly showed cascading, I wanted to head out. But before I could do anything, you have seen the dive, that massive dive where the wing was vertical on the right-hand side. And after that, it was just a series of trying to deal with the situation there. I mean, never got a wing in control to, point it towards the open on the right-hand side. I would have done that. And every time, last two instances when I mentioned with my ENA wing, when I sense that turbulence, I immediately headed out, right? So absolutely, that's the right thing to do. I would say the mistake is approach any ridge. First of all, I have been now cross-country flying in Kamshed for some time now. I keep exploring the regions around, but I have changed my strategy completely, especially after this instance. Our wind, the speeds, and is unforgivable in Kamshed. I mean, it's not Beer where you can be okay to be a little bit on the other side. Here it can be very unforgivable. So all my cross-country in now Kamshed is done at a good height. That means I always approach the ridges from the top, never from the side or bottom. And when I approach him, I'm cautiously finding out which way the wind is. And if I am not sure, I'll keep heading outward. I'll keep heading outside as much as, and keep checking. Only if I find, yes, this is safe, I'll cut in. Otherwise, I'll never go closer to the ridges in an unknown place. Even though the wind is coming from that side, but do not ignore the local effect. Do not ignore sometimes the wind coming strongly from one side can actually turn and hit back in different direction to the next ridge. So all things could happen, especially in a high wind condition. So now I approach it very gingerly. I even let it go, whatever. I have many times so gingerly that someone else is actually going deep inside and climbing out, and I'm saying, no, not for me. Or if I see him enough safe, then I will follow him. But I'm not the first guy to enter deep anywhere in Kamshed now. I go to out in the open and try to find something out. Okay.
Okay. Rohit, next was from Vikas Shelar. What are the signs before we enter into this situation?
What are the signs before? That's the thing. You will never know the signs before. I mean, there's all data, there's all little telltales that is happening around you. But as a pilot, that's a classic intermittent syndrome. You don't know what you don't know. If I would have been smarter at that time, more cautious at that time, I wouldn't have probably gone so committedly inside. Okay. And today also, I would say, I don't know what I don't know. If I go probably in a different valley systems in Europe or somewhere, I don't know a lot of things there. But now I have probably respecting more what I don't know. So it's very easy to think that what are the signs to know so that I won't enter this condition. But idea is that we all know the theory. It's the same theory. There's no different in that. And there will be a situation that you might be in the doubt. So respect your doubt. If you're in the doubt, don't take chances. Play outside, play outward, keep testing the air, keep approaching it from different angle to feel the texture. As because person of your experience or anybody now understands what good air feels like, what trashy air feels like. If you feel the air is not right, the texture is not right, avoid it, and so on and so forth. So that's what I would say. Very difficult. I mean, I can give you a classic example. I mean, if you're doing a cross country, you can look around the smoke, birds, so many things to determine the wind angle that's approaching the particular ridge. You can do all that, but depends on where you are. Like, I'm probably taking more risk at Beer because the winds are low. I'll go comfortably closer to the ridges. Versus in Kamshet or in Panchgani, I'm very ginger. It's just probably something that has ingrained me. Maybe it's not right. Maybe as my knowledge increase, one day I'll start trusting my calculation and judgment better. But I'm very ginger in the high wind condition mountains now. Viz, you want to add? Feel free. Probably I'm not so right here. Maybe more conservative, but as I said, you are who you are based on what your experiences has shaped you.
No, Rohit, I absolutely agree with you that, I mean, the wind is not something that you can fool around with. In fact, even the question that he asked, that why did you not turn away? I mean, once you're in that kind of air mass, you don't have the choice. You cannot, your glider is not behaving as it normally would. And I don't think you have the choice to really, turn and fly away.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, I don't know if I can sketch on this.
Take a pen and try to.
Okay, no, I can't share content. But yeah, maybe I can sketch in this part.
You don't need to content. Just take the screen. There's an annotate. Pick up that and you can draw.
Yeah. So for example, this is what that ridge is like. Okay, and we were flying somewhere in this area. I was flying here in this bowl.
Oh, by the way, Viz is a land portrait, guys. So
yeah, the wind was coming from this direction. So, and you kind of came in and sort of went behind somewhere here, and that's when it started. Correct?
Yeah, correct.
So now if you visualize what's happening with the wind is actually coming this way, and then it is wrapping around in the venturi. And it is speeding up as it comes around this. So by the time you're here and you realize that, I'm in trouble. So not only from the sides, the wind is also coming over and wrapping around. And so to simply fly away is very, very difficult. By the time you turn the glider, you're still in this bad air mass. There are rotors, even side rotors are happening. So it's not easy. So like you said, be cautious. Try and avoid getting into that kind of air altogether. So yeah, nothing else.
If I can draw on this, now this is where, look, you ask what would have done to, see the signs. So in my mind, the wind was a little bit of this direction. Okay. So that's a slight difference between the way Viz is showing and me, but that makes a whole lot of difference, right? Because I thought I am going to arrive here and I'm going to climb this pine this way. Okay. This is again, the Beer effect plays on your mind. Viz and me, we discussed a couple of times. Once the pilot flies in Beer and when they come back, they often have the Beer memory. You have to set aside Beer completely. And I was thinking of slightly climbing here and then maybe a thermal or whatever. But the moment even though I turned here, all this wind, because this sideways pushed me and the terrain is rising. So it pushed me and soon I was here.
Correct.
And the terrain is higher now. Okay. Because even though I was trying to keep the straight line, trying to climb the ridge line, I was slightly getting drifted right on the vicious band there. Okay. So look, a slight difference in my understanding of wind. Probably this is like not more than 30 degrees difference of wind understanding, but that made the whole difference in what I thought is okay for me to go along this and then try to find something and getting pushed here and suddenly finding myself on the exactly completely right hand side in the lee. If you see the video right now, it looks stupid. Why am I even there? Okay, look at this. Okay, hold on. Let me stop this. Clear all drawings. Okay, escape. Nice. Okay, let me just take you guys over here. Okay, the question is, why am I even on the right hand side of this mountain? I was just thinking of staying on this ledge. I mean, what you see is only top 30% of this mountain. There is a below 40-60% of the mountain. I was actually climbing on that ridge earlier, and now suddenly I find myself high and on the right hand side.
Rohit, can you just freeze this here? Yeah. So again, when you're visualizing the air, not only are you going to get, rotors here coming over the top. Okay, but also remember that, if the air is coming from this side, you're also going to get rotors from the sides, So this is something we sometimes forget about. We only think of rotors coming over the top.
Yeah.
So, and also the venturi from the side, as you're approaching that ridge, whether it is on top or whether it is down here, you are going to get sucked into that whole, air that is flowing around this.
Yeah. Good point, Viz. I was almost feeling as if I got like accelerated there, even though that wasn't my intention to go to that side. I was like, involuntarily, I'm getting whoop there.
And once you're here, your glider is here, this air is actually pushing down on you. So there's no real control, you can't, your wing, everything feels spongy. You can't really, even if you want to execute a right turn, your glider won't even react.
But Rohit, let me ask you a question here. Did you decide to go on the lee side because was it on the sunny? Did you think that was a sunny slope and maybe you were thinking of it being the thermal hotspot?
Not at all.
You did not think of that. Okay.
Not at all. Because we know the wind, when we are approaching this ridge, there was quite a speed. So I know for sure I have to stay on this side of the
windward side. Okay.
I think it was also the beer effect, because he was planning to approach this ridge head on and then climb like that.
Yeah.
Whereas he should have
come a little out,
reaching somewhere here, on the left.
Yeah, I have a question, Rohit. So considering when you're approaching that ridge head on, but still if there was slight wind, you would have been facing towards the wind, but this looks like you're facing downwind. I was just wondering why were you facing downwind?
Yeah. Now you're seeing the later part when I'm already got pushed into it, pushed on the lee side. The video starts, maybe earlier. I don't have that now, but you will find me like a classic beer style. I'm trying to stay up the spine, and now I'm getting drifted with so much wind. Now suddenly I find myself on the right hand side of it now.
Yeah, but if, like, for example, if I start getting drifted, I will try to turn the glider more towards the wind that is throwing me off the line. But
good point, Saad. Saad, have you been to beer?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, so in beer, very regularly, the way we, let's say we got a little bit height, now we go to the next higher knuckle point, we reach that point, and if we start getting a lift, we stay connected to it and we stay on top of it, right?
Correct.
Now add a lot of wind in that factor, and suddenly I got myself pushed on the right hand side. So in my mind, I am trying to climbing, and I'm still looking at that the top edge there, just like in beer, but I'm getting now pushed sideways, and suddenly now it's the wrong side.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, my comment is the entire bridge principle, right? So let's say if the wind was not above 15 kilometers per hour, even this move would have worked if it was on the sunny side. You could have gone into the lee, because what will happen is it will trigger a thermal faster over there in the lee if the wind is weaker compared to what winds you are flying in.
So when the wind was definitely less than 15 when we were thermaling initially at the Pavna, but you also have to remember the Pavna typically. I mean, there's hardly any wind at 2:30 when we do early takeoffs trying to get height or something.
And then it builds.
And suddenly there is a massive wave of this 20 km/h wind or something that reaches here. So you can't predict that time. So the idea is that
maybe you got a bad air mass immediately when you were
whatever.
No, Anik, also what you have to remember is that see, if you see the topography, Ticona is let's say I don't know if you can show me the plan, but Ticona is something like this. And then from here, there are these two ridge lines moving away like that. Okay.
Correct.
So if even if your wind is 15K here, okay, what's happening is now,
it ggets accelerated.
Yeah, so all is getting funneled here to this point. And that 15K becomes like a 30, 40K here.
30, 40K by the perfect. Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good catch. Really good catch.
Now, I just want to add a couple of things here about the reserve. And I know it's accident investigation thing, but I'll just plug it here. I was doing SIV, and before that, of course, I asked my instructors to pack my reserve. So they did a good job. They packed it well. We threw it a couple of times. Every time it came out fine. And then we were confident about it. So I packed it and we went on SIV. In SIV, when I tried to throw the reserve, it just came out and it just kept hanging down. It never opened till I hit the water. Okay. That made me really think hard about the whole reserve thing. And then we started figuring it out, our own reserve packings, and me, Viz, often we would come together, we would all pack together. Then I figured out what went wrong really at that time. I could reproduce it. And that made me fanatical about the whole reserve packing and installation and all these aspects. Other thing also, we started thinking about, and this is something that came handy here, is having a very clear idea of when are you going to throw your reserve. Every pilot has to know at what point he's going to throw reserve in what condition. There are some general rules like when you're close to the ground, deploy. It's very easy. But to each pilot, there are different pointers that you will change. For example, Avi in his two-liner, if he gets a cascading event high up in the mountain, he has a lot of experience and SIVs and acro experiences. He can probably try to correct that cascade for some more time because he has a ground height. For me, let's say a couple of SIVs, now I'll do more attempt to stall out my wing if I have the height. Okay. But somebody who has done, let's say, just one SIV, they know what stall is, but how confident are they to really go through the entire stall, backfly, recover in the thrashing air, in the thermic air? So for each pilot, they have to know what is that decision point. So for example, here, my decision point was if I see the wing diving and winding up in a spiral close to the ground, I'm just going to deploy. Okay. Now, of course, that remains the same. So for any of young pilots with the similar experience, even if you have done SIV, you know how to recover from your spins, your collapse. Be very aware of the ground, how close it is, and have a quick judgment. Can you actually do everything what you are doing over the water under the guidance of your instructor over a box with a boat waiting down? In here, in the pressure situation and in much trashier air that you can see here. Okay, so have that decision ready and execute in a snap. That is the most important point of any accident, that have a very clear understanding. What is your point that beyond which you shouldn't try, just deploy. Save yourself, fly another day. There's no harm. All that is probably is a loss of equipment or maybe a little broken leg in the worst case scenario. I mean, over the years, any deployment, people have broken their legs here and there, but more than that, we haven't heard any major injury in the reserve deployment, whereas you'll find so many pilots on the ground without reserve deployed, not there with us anymore. So it's very important to have that clear picture in the mind and keep repeating that algorithm in your head when you're flying. Of course, one other thing is to touch your handle that you know very well. You do that often, I hope. And along with that, quickly revise what conditions are beyond your skill at this point in time, and you're just going to deploy. So close to the ground, just deploy. Don't think. If you have some height, look at the situation, try to recognize it, think quickly, can you recover it? No, deploy. If you can't even recognize what's happening and you have some height but not too much, deploy again. Recognition is important. What you see, the configuration of your wing is important. You should be able to identify what is happening with your wing so that you understand what is the recovery process for that and how long does it typically take. Okay, that's the short on the reserve side.
I have something to add here on reserves. You know, I've noticed that a lot of pilots over the years are just very happy to have somebody pack their reserves. You know that, oh, okay, season is starting, I need to pack my reserve. So I either give it, you know, to the school or some, you know, packing expert. So this is something I feel that is wrong. You know, I mean, the same way that you are learning how to fly, you're learning, you need to learn and you need to know exactly how to pack your reserve. You know, or at least get involved. I'm not suggesting that, you know, everybody starts packing the reserve from a manual. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that if you have asked somebody to pack your reserve, be there, participate, you know, help out with the process, learn. I think this is very important. You know, I mean, it's an attitude thing. It's like everything else about flying. You need to know how to pack your reserve. You need to, you know everything about your reserve, because finally your life is going to depend on it. So you can't just leave it to somebody else. You know, if you are knowledgeable, you know, it's like having one more pair of eyes. Maybe the guy who's packing the reserve missed something and you can catch it, you know. Second thing about reserves is, anyway, I forgot. I'll come back to that if I remember.
Installation. If I have to add, I'll say the installation is another.
Yeah, packing and packing and installation. You know, periodic checking, of course. There was one more thing, but I'll come back to it when I remember it.
Okay, let's not make further the reserve session. Maybe we should have more of that later. But yeah, about the overall the situation here, accident analysis. Any further question, or feel free to even ask you know, any question that.
Hey Rohit, Nishil here. I have a quick question for you regarding the deployment part.
Yeah.
So I see when you're very low to the ground. So at the point, I don't know if you are on the pod or the foot strip that you are using. So your legs were stuck on it quite a long time. I mean, till the end. So you think it would have been better if your legs are moving freely to have more control when you're close to the ground?
Again, I briefly touched upon it, but let me now take more time to explain it. If I would have been on an open harness in this situation, things would have been much, much better. Okay. So what I have here is I'm actually flying a pod harness. This is my first pod harness. And the manufacturer advertised that you can fly this in the open configuration as well, which is, as I have learned over the years and what I understood more about the harness geometries now, it's incorrect. When the pod harnesses are designed, they are designed to fly with pod with your legs resting on the pod container comfortably. You can fly it open, but you have much less control than even the pod. So I would say open harness is the most secure. Pod harness comes later with the seat blade, with the, you know, then there are hammock style comes after. The worst is you take the pod harness, you remove the pod, and then you just put a foot strip. So that's exactly what you see me doing right now. Answer to your question, the first time when I had a collapse, my instinct should have been just remove the legs from the strip and fold it close. That should have been my instinct. Unfortunately, I didn't do that because you can see the whole thing, the violence when you play it at, again, regular speed. I'm so overwhelmed that I'm probably just keeping my pressure on that, trying to find some balance in that all wishy-washy getting thrown in the washing machine there, right? So I'm clinching on that, and that's the same problem people would have with the pod as well. Now, another thing I do with my pod is I try to keep my center of gravity, my upper part of the body, closer to the risers, so that anytime there's a turbulence, I slightly come forward and, or I'm already at the center of the gravity. In this configuration, I was more laid back, more prone. So everything added together, trying to fly this harness in open style, then me being more prone, not coming quickly between the risers when things started going south, not folding my legs, all of these contributed. So when you fly, if you ever start flying pod, consider all these points. Consider that, are you well tuned to bring your legs quickly underneath? Many pilots keep practicing. I practice, but again, I'm not so good at it. Even today, often my legs are still out in a difficult condition. So that's when I have reconfigured my pod so that I'm flying slightly more vertical, closer. So I'm always within reasonable, close to the risers, so that it doesn't hurt my center of gravity too much. It's a performance penalty, but I would rather take the penalty than be in a similar situation such as this. So very good point. My legs shouldn't have been there right after the first collapse. I should have been tucking them under.
Yep. Thanks, Rohit.
Avi, you're on mute.
Okay, we can remove the screen.
Okay.
Okay, guys, just to put things in perspective, I think a beautiful session. We've been also requested to communicate a bit in Hindi for the benefit of some pilots who are watching on YouTube. So I'll try and do that. So number one is to be aware of your ground position and your position in the air. Okay, सबसे पहले कि आप हवा में किधर हैं, आपकी ग्राउंड पोजीशन क्या है, ये आपको जानना बहुत ही जरूरी है. नंबर 2, विजुअलाइज करना, जो कि हम आपको ट्रेनिंग में सिखाते हैं कि हवा के साथ क्या हो रहा है. ठीक है, टू हैव अ मेंटल मैप कि व्हाट इज हैपनिंग टू द विंड ऑन द लैंडस्केप दैट यू आर फ्लाइंग. तो विजुअलाइज करो जैसे कि हवा पानी है और पानी कैसे बहेगा, ऊपर से कैसे जाएगा, साइड से कैसे जाएगा, व्हाइट वाटर कहाँ बनेगा. टू बी कॉन्स्टेंटली अवेयर ऑफ दैट all the time while you're flying. So this is number 2. Number 1, what is my ground position, my air position altitude wise? I'm aware of that, number 1. Number 2, what is happening to the landscape? What is happening to the air around the landscape? What is the aerology? This is number 2. And number 3 is location. Calm shade is very different from beef. We saw in this situation that the pilot is used to being on the spine and catching thermals and going up. But you have to totally forget this, because you cannot be on spines in calm shade where there is strong wind. You have to be ahead. You have to be on the windward side. So being aware of the location you are flying and the aerology of the place you're flying. And most pilots will fly both the places, and it is very different. Calm shade is not an area where you want to deploy your reserve. Okay, it's not a reserve deployment friendly place because of strong wind. Here you can never be on the lee side. You cannot talk of sun heating the other side, and because you are flying mostly in strong winds, you can never be on the lee. So number 3 is your location. You need to be aware in the landscape, the weather you are flying. Number 4, your situational awareness. The moment I feel, oh my God, I'm in a wrong place.
Hindi, right?
Oh, okay, this doesn't look good. Run away, escape if you can.
Are we Hindi, right? I'm just reminding you.
Yeah. So I need to go over it again. So number 1, सबसे पहले कि मैं ground में मेरी position कहाँ है और हवा में मेरी height कहाँ है. Number 2, विजुलाइज करूं कि हवा के साथ क्या हो रहा है, नीचे पहाड़ी में, वैली में, वेंचुरी कहाँ बन रही है, साइड रोटर कहाँ बन रहे हैं, टर्बुलेंस कहाँ है, इसकी अवेयरनेस। नंबर 3, मैं कामशेट में फ्लाई कर रहा हूँ, बीर में फ्लाई कर रहा हूँ, बीइंग अवेयर ऑफ दैट। नंबर 4, मेरी सिचुएशन क्या है। अभी हमने देखा कि पायलट एक सिचुएशन में आया, एक मोमेंट था कि मुझे पता लगा मैं गलत सिचुएशन में हूँ, मैं वहां से निकलूं, मैं वहां से भाग जाऊं। हो सकता है मैं ऑलरेडी घुस गया हूं और अभी कंट्रोल इफेक्टिव नहीं है और मुझे निकलना मुश्किल है, लेकिन इफ आई एम मोर अवेयर ऑफ माई सिचुएशन, देन मेरे पास एक एस्केप रूट है कि यहाँ से निकलूं, यहाँ से भागूं और सेफेस्ट एरिया की तरफ जाऊं जहां पे रोटर्स टर्बुलेंस नहीं है। एंड नंबर 6, इंप्रूविंग माई स्किल। अभी ये सिचुएशन किसी के साथ भी हो सकती है, हम पैराग्लाइडिंग कर रहे हैं, हम सिचुएशंस में आएंगे, तो इंप्रूविंग योर स्किल ऑफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग द ग्लाइडर, विच टेक्स अस टू द पॉइंट ऑफ डूइंग एन SIV कोर्स, कि हमने देखा कि पायलट ने काफी अपनी सिचुएशनल अवेयरनेस रखी, तभी उसने डिसीजन ले पाया कि ओके, आई नीड टू डिप्लॉय, ओके लेट मी स्टॉल दिस ग्लाइडर बिफोर इट गोज इनटू अ रोटेशन। ये रोटेशन में घुसने से पहले मैं ग्लाइडर को स्टॉल करके बैकफ्लाई में जाके रिजर्व फेंको। सो ये पायलट ये कर पाया क्योंकि इसने SIV किया हुआ है, इसको पता है कि ये मैं कर सकता हूँ, अपना रेट ऑफ डिसेंट रिड्यूस कर सकता हूँ और रिजर्व को यूज कर सकता हूँ। सो लास्ट पॉइंट इज इंप्रूविंग योर स्किल। एंड लाइक रोहित मेंशन कि एक SIV कर लिया, उसने स्टॉल करवा दिया इंस्ट्रक्टर ने और मैंने रिकवर बैकफ्लाई कर लिया, ये आपकी स्किल नहीं है। अगर जब सिचुएशन में आएंगे जहां पे स्ट्रेसफुल सिचुएशन है, पूरा कोर्टिजोल, एड्रेनालिन, ऑल दी स्ट्रेस हार्मोन्स ने हमारे ब्रेन को फ्लड किया है, यू विल नॉट बी एबल टू थिंक कॉन्शियसली एट ऑल। सो मेरी प्रैक्टिस होनी चाहिए। मे बी आई हैव डन 3, 4, 5, 6 SIVs. I can comfortably, without instructor, stall and go into backfly. I can probably use this. Last point, क्योंकि ये इन्वेस्टिगेशन हमारा रिजर्व का था, टू बिकम फ्रेंड्स विद रिजर्व, टू बिकम मोर कॉम्पिटेंट विद यूजिंग आवर रिजर्व। जैसे विज जी ने भी बोला कि लर्न हाउ टू पैक, लर्न हाउ टू इंस्टॉल, कॉन्स्टेंटली उसको डिप्लॉय कर करके देखो। ऐसा भी सिचुएशंस हुए हैं कि हम SIV से पहले ब्रीफिंग करते हैं, ऐसे भी सिचुएशन है कि पायलट इधर हाथ मार रहा है, उसको हैंडल ही नहीं मिल रहा है, उसको पता ही नहीं है कि देखना होता है, और जहां तुम सोच रहे हो हैंडल है वहां पे हैंडल नहीं है, और प्रेशियस 1, 2, 3 सेकेंड आपके वेस्ट हो सकते हैं जबकि आप अपने आप को बचा सकते थे। सो लास्ट पॉइंट विल बी दैट इंप्रूविंग योर स्किल्स एंड अंडरस्टैंडिंग ग्लाइडर बिहेवियर, कि आप स्टॉल, स्पिन्स, एसिमेट्रिक कोलैप्सेस करें, ग्लाइडर की सिचुएशन को समझें, तभी आप सही एक्शन ले पाएंगे। एटलीस्ट आप समझ पाएंगे क्या हो रहा है, आपको समझ में आएगा कि हाँ मुझे ये आउट ऑफ कंट्रोल है, डिप्लॉय, या फिर हाइट है, कंट्रोल कर सकता हूं क्योंकि समझ में आ रहा है क्या हो रहा है, कंट्रोल कर लिया और रिजर्व डिप्लॉयमेंट की जरूरत नहीं पड़ी। So yeah, so thank you very much, Rohit. That was fantastic, and I think a fantastic session where people could ask directly and clear their doubts, about getting into a situation like that. And like I said, as you progress, as you grow as a pilot, your envelope of understanding and your skill set has to improve. If you're not growing as a pilot, if you're not improving as a pilot, it is a sign of danger. If you just keep soaring and you want to stay safe, you will get bored with that, and then you will do something that can put you into trouble also. That is also something to watch out for. So I hope it didn't scare anyone, but only educated everybody that these things can happen. But if you're smart about your learning, you can avoid, such situations. And like I said, there is an inertia in your skill and your understanding, like confusing between, the two sides. Beer and Kamshet is a very different scenario, and so is Panchgani. And we don't have time. I think Viz also could share his, experience of deploying at Panchgani. And we also had KK here who could also, maybe KK, you could quickly share one incident and then, we close it because
why not take a proper, there are good instances and a lot of good information. So do it proper later with them rather than cramming it here.
Okay.
Okay. I'd like to ask a question to Rohit and you and Biz. Assuming that, I'm a low-hour pilot with just about 15 hours or something I've done in Kamshet, and I'm going to a new site and I've not done an SIV for whatever reasons. How do you think I can know if I have to throw a reserve or if I can recover? What is it that makes you decide that, you need to throw a reserve now, or what situation you are in or you're not? Because I don't think a 10-hour, 15-hour pilot can actually recognize what situation he is in, So what is the telltale that tells you that, okay, good, just throw out your reserve now?
So I'll take this. Look, the answer is very simple. Whether you have lots of height or whether you're close to the terrain, the minute you start getting into a rotation, you should throw your reserve. Okay, because there are a number of factors. If you have a big collapse, then most likely is that you will get into a rotation. Next thing is, before you know it, you will be in a twist. Also, what happens is that after the second rotation, the G forces start kicking in. So you may not even be able to take your hand to the reserve. I've had this situation where I was turning so fast that I had to literally, it was an effort just to take my hand and reach my reserve handle. So yeah, if you're, even a little bit of doubt, throw the reserve. It's going to give you a second chance.
Okay, I'll just add a few things. So there are some situations where, you don't think, you just deploy. Okay. One is equipment failure. You have an equipment failure, glider torn or lines breaking, or just don't think, you just deploy. Number one. Number two, you have a medical emergency. You are kind of, injured, or you are like, feeling nausea. You don't think twice, you deploy. Number three, you have, a mid-air collision. You just wait for 1 second. You're not out. You deploy. You don't think. Okay. Number four, you don't understand the situation. You had a rotation and you're going into the second one. Don't think, deploy. Okay. These are situations which, you don't have to think and you deploy. We also said, whenever in doubt, just deploy. It's a safer option. Okay. You're not deploying only in a case when you have altitude and you understand the situation and you can get out of it. That's okay. I know what's going on. I know I got a big collapse. I know I'm diving. I know what to do. I don't have to deploy. I can control the situation. I get out of the situation and I fly. Okay. Otherwise, lower down, don't think, you deploy. There's a better chance that you will survive. What makes you, it's not just a matter of deploying only, you need to be good with your deploying. You need to have checked your equipment properly. You should have installed it properly. You should have practiced throwing your reserve. Like when I conduct SIV courses, in every flight I'm asking, whenever you're coming to the box, okay, practice reserve deployment simulation. Okay, if I were to throw, and you can do this in normal flying also, you're flying and you're on a transition, tell yourself, okay, if I was to throw now, how would I go about it? Okay, look, locate, go for the handle, pull, swing, throw. So you practice this maybe once in every flight, and you never know. On some day, you'll be happy that you practice this. And it's not a big thing, actually. I envy guys who actually deployed, reserve somewhere in their flight. And these acro guys, there are some guys I was talking to, Theo is deployed like maybe 50, 60 times. Some acro pilots have deployed reserve 100 times because they've been practicing these tricks and they need to throw it, and it's become a second nature. They don't even think twice and they know they're going to safely come down. So this practice is necessary to give you the confidence to actually use it. There have been so many, fatal and other accidents where the pilot has been found on the ground with just his hand on an undeployed reserve kind of a thing. Okay, so yeah, that's what comes to my mind to share.
There are some questions on the chat.
Yeah. Dr. Kannam, you want to ask your question? Doc?
Okay, who wants to ask the question?
Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Doc. So good to see you.
Hi. Okay, today is my holiday. So anyway, I just wanted to ask that I have just done not much of flying, and I'm always trying to be very safe. I think my friends know it very well. And I've done SIVs, 2 SIVs, and I feel that what Rohit and everybody says over here is very true, that in an SIV situation, you're in a controlled situation, you have an instructor with you, you go to the box, you do your stuff and come back. But if I'm in Rohit's situation, I would definitely panic. No doubt about it. I know my weaknesses, and I would like to do more SIVs. But every time, I always like to have somebody who says, okay, stall. So I know that my flying is very, very small and thing, but I love to fly. I like to be in the air, and I'm always very calculative in thing. I don't push myself too much. I always like to do what I am comfortable with. My basic thing is, okay, we do SIVs, we do a lot of things, but I think more important is the presence of mind and awareness that you get used to it. It becomes like a part of muscle memory, like Avi said, rather than the brain. I mean, if people in acros do so many deployments, that means it has become muscle memory to them, isn't it? Am I right with that?
Yeah.
I think, Doc, you're answering your own question there, and beautifully so. So you're right. I mean, I've seen your flying, of course. I mean, there was a time when you probably were scared to take off, but now I see your kiting is very good. You can take off comfortably. You get spooked in the flying sometime. That's fine. But are you even scared of taking off anymore? Because I've seen you taking off a lot of time. You take off good now. So just like that, you already said it, muscle memory. I mean, you reach to a point where pulling collapses and going up in the air, start pulling big airs, followed by collapses, followed by bigger collapse. Should be just normal thing. What's a big deal, right? At some point in time, you should even achieve stall point. I mean, it just how much you practice. Take 2 pilots. I mean, me, Sajid, we both fly together. I have pretty much done the entire SIV on my own last 2 gliders, like my Rook 2 High B and now later ENC. I completely did it on my own. I just asked the instructor to keep an eye on me. Okay. Having said that, with that confidence over the water, I still haven't managed to pull my own stall over the ground in beer or anywhere. Whereas Sajid is more than happy to pull it on probably at even lower. So it just how comfortable he is, how much muscle memory. For me, the risk versus reward ratio just doesn't add, or I haven't really practiced it so much. Okay, so there is no substitute. I'm pretty sure one day I'll pull stall over tower in Pavna, but probably I'll take longer. I'll keep hammering my wing, my C's again and again and again and again to the point when this becomes boring to me. But definitely I'll do it one day.
So, Doc, like, each pilot, your truth, best. How comfortable you are, how nervous you are. And you have to take, the baby steps and coach yourself and go further and forward, keeping your comfort level in mind. And that's it. Before you go into, advanced flying, make sure you have a solid foundation and it's very natural for most pilots here to feel nervous, where we have not flown for past 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, and now we're suddenly, talking about, accidents. So the perception today, like, might be like, oh fuck, like it doesn't feel very great, it's like this is not wow, this sport anymore, but it's not so. It's just that being aware of these things, and probably you'll not put yourself in a situation like this. You understand, okay, lee side in Kamshet, Panchgani is like another business. Lee side, in Bir is a totally different thing, because here we are in strong winds, and there it's not so strong the wind. Light winds, you can be tumbling in the lee as well. So it is developing our understanding, and actually maybe we don't realize it consciously, but it should actually be giving us more confidence. And you always, I think you're a very good pilot. The way you go about your flying, you don't get influenced by others, easily, and you're taking your own decisions depending on your comfort level. That's a sign of a good pilot. And push your, limits, and grow as you like, and you decide that. So nobody knows you better than you. So I would recommend, like, it's all good. It's all good, and progress like that. Make sense? And yeah, you're a big hero, like everybody here knows the work you're doing. You're a frontline fighters, like, my God, I don't know if I would be, probably be able to survive in a situation that you are in. It is super high stress, and working constantly with, this situation. Like, salutations to you, man. You're a big star and big hero. We shouldn't be telling you stuff, but enjoy your flying. That's the bottom line. Enjoy it. You like it, inside, I love this, and go in a safe, beautiful way about it.
I think there was a question.
I just wanted to add something. We are three people, basically, Arif, Srikanth, and myself.
The three amigos.
And we always watch these, the super pilots, like Viz, Rohit, Sajid, Alok, these guys. Oh my God, they're doing Panchgani to Pavana. What is this yet? You see. So of course, we always keep to our levels of understanding and all those things, and wonderful pilots. And Rohit, thank you so much. It was beautiful to listen to you, Avi, for making this happen. Viz, thank you for your inputs, and everybody. And I know that it's very, I always try to come into this program, but since today I was able to come, super. I feel nice. Some other topic, at least.
Yeah, nice thank to you, have you here, Doc.
Sorry?
It's nice to see you, Doc.
It's always a delight. So yeah, I think we'll let you know about the next topic, and I will let you know about the next topic. We could have one on SIV, where we want to clear all kind of doubts that people have about SIV, and we have a kind of an investigation on that topic to decode what SIV is all about. And we have a lot of pilots who've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 SIV courses, and I think that'll go in a long way to clear your doubts about when they share their experience, and we can decode what SIV is all about. That could be one of the next ones. Otherwise, we'll put our head together and see what we could conjure up next for you. And yeah, good timing today. Thank you. Can
I close the session?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'll just start with answering quickly. There was a question about, is the trees safer to land? Always, no matter what, under the reserve or under the wing, if you have to choose, always choose a tree. Often you will come a lot better than hitting the ground in either case. Okay. Just want to close. We had some heavy discussion today, and something as a young pilot, I would have been a little scared to look at all this. So just want to close it saying that I was given an opportunity, a second chance to come out unhurt in this situation. You don't have to put yourself, you can learn from this. That's one. And no matter how much scared I was after that for a while, it's just the sheer focus on a lot of investment in practice, trainings, SIVs, and taking the right step, as Avi mentioned, taking it within your comfort zone. Do not try to stay with someone at their level, at their speed of evolution. You can maintain your own evolution speed. It's been 10 years since this happened, and I'm still here enjoying this sport. So I believe even though you might see this or other accident videos and so on, there's always a way to approach this to ensure that you are not turning this into any Russian roulette, and practice hard, take the conservative decisions, play within your limits, push boundaries at times to learn, but every time know how much to push and how much to dial back. If you have those doubts, talk to the instructors, talk to the other senior pilots, they'll help you. And yeah, stay safe, enjoy the sport.
Yeah, this was another topic that KK and me were discussing, that, like when you have a extreme experience or a frightening experience, what it takes, to get out of an experience, to get your confidence back, which can be a topic in itself. So we could be kind of talking about that. The question Saad asked was, when is the next SIV? Well, it should be in September or October. We'll check, possibilities at Pong Dam, at Bilaspur, and see where we can conduct our next SIV and how, the situation around the pandemic is. And accordingly, we'll announce, the next SIV. So that's the answer, Saad. And thank you, Rohit, Viz, Sajid, KK, and Vanik, and everyone else for participating. It brings in energy, when there are more pilots, more participants, the learning is, richer and more beneficial and more value for everyone. And hope everyone is, riding the challenges which life is throwing at all of us with courage and love and best wishes. Stay high, stay above, and nothing can touch you. Yeah, stay safe. So thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. I hope you're enjoying watching